Hello.
And we're live. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we have Mr. Cliff and his wife Patricia with us. They had an encounter out in San Diego, California. I think I'm correct about that, aren't I, Cliff?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. We're doing this a little different tonight. Wayne's not going to be joining us, but I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Cliff.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity to share this with you. I just want to tell everybody that this is the only time we've ever talked about this, and this will be the one and only time that we bring this up, because this causes my wife to relive a very traumatic experience. So we feel that it's important that it gets out there for a number of reasons, but this is not something that, we're going to be talking about after this, because we're just going to kind of let it go. Anyway, this situation happened in a part of the country that you would least expect anything like this to happen, because it happened in San Diego in the foothills. And I don't know if you're familiar with San Diego, but it has a coastline, and then it jumps into some foothills, and then some 5,000 foot tall mountains, and then it jumps down into the desert. And this happened in around the year 2000. We were doing a lot of truck camping at the time, a lot of ground camping, and I was working evenings, and we would actually head out the night of my Friday night on these trips. So that would, get us heading out at around 9 o'clock from San Diego. And then we would get out into the backcountry around 10:30 and start throwing a camp up. And we wanted to do it that way so that we could actually wake up out where we were to have more time to enjoy ourselves. And that's what we were doing. The time of year was early November, and we were heading to a place called Kitchen Creek Campground, which is a small campground, and there's only about 40 campsites in it. And I had never been there before, so I didn't really know what to expect. And we loaded up my Toyota 4x and we headed out. Took us about an hour to get there, and when we pulled into the place was completely deserted. There was a camp host there, staying there in his mobile home, but the lights were out, and looked like he'd already gone to bed when we rolled in there. And we rolled in there just after 11 o'clock. We drove around the place. We picked out a campsite. We didn't see anybody else in there. There was absolutely zero people in there, and the camp host, his motorhome and everything was darked out. We drove around in there. My wife picked out a campsite that was really pretty. It had boulders on each side, some shrubs. The truck was parked right above where the camp tent was going to be. And so you had the truck here, you had the camp down below it, and then you had a fire ring, and then you had it dropped down a slope to a creek, and in the creek area was all dark with oak and scrub oak, and we couldn't really see down in there because it was night. Like I say, we rolled in there at 11 o'clock at night. We parked. I threw up a camp real quick. We got the tent all set up and everything, and I immediately built a fire. And I started cooking some chicken on the fire. So I had a bunch of chicken cooking on the fire, and a can of beans on the fire, and popped a couple beers, and we were just relaxing, enjoying ourselves, starting our vacation. We were feeling good, having a good time. All of a sudden, it got a little windy, and it looked like a storm was coming in.
Small storm.
Yeah, a small storm, not a crazy storm, but it got windy, and then it was starting to sprinkle. And I was just finishing up cooking the chicken, and all of a sudden, this is when stuff started to happen. Okay, there was a thud on the ground, not far from the fire, off to my right, and it got my attention. And I looked off to my right and looked around. Didn't see anything. Didn't think much of it at the time. I was like, what was that? Went back to my business. And then a minute or two later, a freaking rock comes flying into the camp and lands a couple feet from the fire. And it came from the right. It came from about 2 o'clock on the clock. I was facing the fire and facing the creek with the tent behind me and the truck behind me. And so this came in at about 2 o'clock and landed on the ground and rolled toward the fire. And I'm like, I told my wife, I said, did you see that?
I said no. I said, but I heard something land.
Okay, so at the time, I got up, I looked around, got the flashlight out, scanned the whole area. Nothing, nobody around, nobody in the campsite. And I'm saying, there's somebody throwing rocks. And then I yelled out, I go, whoever's throwing rocks, knock that shit off. And then scanned the area again. And then we looked at each other. We didn't know what to think, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so at that point, the food was done. And all of a sudden now it starts to sprinkle pretty good. So we grabbed the food and we got inside the tent and we started eating our dinner. And it was going to be, a hunker down night because it looked like it was going to rain. Now, from this point on, I'm going to let my wife tell the story because she has a much more vivid memory than I do of this night. And the crazy stuff that happens after this actually happened to her. So go ahead and take it from there.
Well, after we got done eating and everything, we were sitting inside the tent. We were just talking. And we were laughing and just talking about what we were going to do the following day because I wanted to see the creek. And we heard this thump on the tent and then hit the ground. Then we heard another thump on the tent and it hit the ground, like right behind our heads. And Cliff was like, somebody's out there throwing rocks again. So he looks out the window and doesn't see anything. So then we were talking just for a little bit more and then finally fell asleep. So after we were sleeping for a little while, something jolted me awake. Like I just woke up and I was laying on my back and I was trying to figure out why I wasn't hearing anything. I wasn't hearing any wind. I wasn't hearing any rain. I was hearing nothing except for this tiny little scrape going across the tents where our heads are. He was asleep, but he said out loud, fingers on my head. And I thought, what the hell kind of weird dream is he having? Because, I mean, it was weird for him to even say something in his sleep because he doesn't do that. So I pushed my head all the way back to the back of the tent where the top of my head is now on the back of the tent. And I'm listening, trying to hear just something. And I just keep hearing this scrape going across. And I felt something slide across my head. And then I felt from this side of my head to this side of my head, just the fingers from this end to the tip. And it closed across my head. And I slid down. And I rolled over to my left side and I took the pillow and I moved the pillow 3 to 4 inches off. I went underneath the sleeping bag. And I still heard this little scrape, and then it stopped. And then something told me, look. So as I get out, I get my head out, and I'm looking up at the corner of the tent. And I see this huge hand on the side of the tent. This thing was just huge. There was nobody's hand that is that big. The palm was just thick and the fingers were just it was just huge. And then I saw the palm go off the side of the tent, and I just see these large fingers, and they curled and then just scraped off. And I was looking towards the back of the tent because I'm thinking the window flap is still down on the back. And I'm thinking, is this thing going to walk to the back? Is it going to look? What's going on? And I don't see a shadow, and I still don't hear anything. It's still dead silent. And I thought to myself, look out the back window. And when that thought came into my head, I curled up in a little ball underneath the covers, and I started rocking. And I kept rocking, and I started getting a migraine. And I just kept rocking until I went to sleep. And then we woke up the next day. He goes outside, and he's looking around. And he comes to me, and he goes, look, these are the rocks that we heard. This was the area that I found these rocks. So I'm holding the rocks in my hand, and we're thinking, how did these things get there? And I'm thinking in my head, what the hell did I see? And so he went down to the restroom, and then the ranger came driving by. Then he came out, and he was talking to the ranger. And he said to the ranger, hey, man, we need to go talk to somebody. Who else is up here? Because we want to go talk to the person because they were throwing rocks at us last night. And the ranger looked at him, and the ranger said, there's nobody else here. He said, you are the only people that are up here. He says, there's another couple that came in at 6 o'clock in the morning. They're down at the bottom all the way across on the other side. So you guys are the only ones here.
Well, now, guys, until this had happened, had y'all ever had any other type experiences like this?
No.
No. And nothing ever since. I just want to say that, I know there's going to be some people out there that are going to, right off the bat, that are going to say San Diego, that's off the radar. And I understand, where you're coming from on that. Freaked us out too. However, I do want people to know that I did do a little bit of research, and I found out that there has been some activity down here. In 1970, there was a sighting in Escondido at Lake Henshaw. A father and son were in a boat on the lake, and they saw a large, big, hairy, upright figure walking through the woods there, and they called it in also. And that's up in North County, about 20 miles from us. Down in South County, about 15 miles south of us in Hamul, there was a series of events that went on where some young cattle periodically were being dragged off and tore up on this ranch. And then also there's some really old stories of that go on for decades of something even more bizarre called the Borrego Wild Man. And this is even farther out. This is out in the desert. This is even harder to believe. But the fact of the matter is that there was accounts that went on for over 20 years where stages that were coming across, because the stagecoaches used to come across the desert right there, and a bunch of prospectors ran into this too, that out in the Badlands, there was a large, hairy biped that was terrorizing people out there, terrorizing people at the way stations where the stage would hold up overnight, terrorizing miners at their camps. So there, believe it or not, there have been a history of a few things, not a lot. This is not Willow Creek or anything like that, but there have been a couple odds and ends that have happened down here. But
there's also been, when we were leaving, the ranger also told us that some hikers had told him, this was like a couple of years before this happened, some hikers had told him why they were hiking up around that area where we were camping. They were also something was also throwing rocks at them in that same area.
All right, guys, could you tell our viewers just exactly how far were you out of the main city where you live?
So we're out there pretty good. I mean, the way San Diego is set up, it's a coastal town. It has about 20 miles, 30 miles off the coast, and you're starting to get into the sticks. And then that's rolling hills out where the Indian reservations are. And then you climb up in elevation, and then you get to a town called Alpine, which is at about 3,000 feet. And then you get into Deer Valley, which is at 4,000 feet. And then you get up into, and now you're in the high hilltops. And then we were out farther than that. We were about 4,500 feet elevation here. And what happens is you get up into this high country where you have like chaparral all around, you have oak trees, you have scrub oak, you have all these creeks coming down out of the mountains, and then it jumps right up into the coastal mountain range where you have Mount Palomar, Mount Laguna, and these mountains are 5,000, 6,000 feet tall. And then very quickly it just jumps right down into the desert, and it's called the Borrego Desert, and it goes all the way out to El Centro, all the way out to Arizona, and it's just wasteland out there after that, badlands. So we were, 45 miles off the coast. We live right on the beach in Point Loma, but so we're 45, 50 miles out into the sticks. We're at the base of a big mountain. We're up in the higher foothills of that mountain, and that's where we used to like to go camping all the time, And with our first time at this campground, it was totally empty. And I'm telling you, man, I've been hooked on Sasquatch and Bigfoot and paranormal stuff ever since then. And it's fun to be the armchair researcher and get into all this stuff and listen to everybody's accounts and watch all the shows and the movies and read all the books and get on YouTube and all that. But when stuff starts actually happening to you and it's messing around your tent at night, it gets scary. And I can't even imagine what these people go through when they come face to face with something like this, because we did not come face to face with.
Just the sight of that hand on the tent had for the next 5 years, man, I always slept in a fetal position, rocking myself to sleep, because every time I saw that image of that hand, it just kept freaking me out, and it still freaks me out. Thinking about it now, the last couple of days, man, I've been sleeping rocking, and I don't keep my pillow close to the wall. The bed's close to the wall, but my pillow is 3 to 4 inches away from the wall, and I've been sleeping like that ever since this happened.
Traumatizing, man. I'm telling you, she's been traumatized by it.
So until this experience, you had never really given any thought to Bigfoot or any type of cryptic?
No. And I mean, we love camping. When I go out into the woods, even now when I go out into the woods, for me, it's a Zen area. That's where I'm most at peace, is inside these surroundings. But inside a tent now, it just freaks me out.
No good. Yeah, we can't. When we go now, we stay in cabins. Tent camping is done, man. We're not doing any more tent camping after that.
Well, I know I've had my own experiences with Bigfoot, Sasquatch. My first one was, excuse me, my first one was back in 1981, and I actually saw the creature.
Oh my God!
It was, most people make them out. Most people, tell that they I guess see the full-grown Sasquatch. The one that I saw was between 5.5 and 6 foot tall, but we actually encountered it one morning while we were float fishing, and we were in a raft floating down Talking Rock Creek, and I saw this thing at probably about 40 yards, and that was a game changer for me. I've been into this ever since. We've had encounters back in 2011 with one at a cemetery that we used to visit doing paranormal stuff, and we actually had rocks thrown at us. We had a tree pushed over the first night, howls, whoops, and it really, this thing can really intimidate you. So
Yeah.
I feel for both of you, I really do.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm fascinated with it now. I'm actually so heavily into the research of it right now, because I got as I watched a couple movies, and then all of a sudden I started actually getting on Facebook and YouTube and following a bunch of boots on the ground guys that are out there, uh, finding structures and finding you're hearing all these different audible sounds that come out of there, and it's insane what these people are finding right now. And now I'm actually researching it every single day. It's kind of got me, gripped into it. I'm almost at the point now where I'm getting kind of a little obsessed with it. So I'm just every single day I'm trying to find more information on it. And what I'd like to do is before we go, I'd like to pass along some really, really high quality information that I came up with recently. I just downloaded all these photographs into the Mannimal, into you guys' Facebook page, of some phenomenal stuff that is going on in Colorado Springs right now. I don't want to give out the guy's name because he's trying to maintain a private life at the same time, but he has these videos out on YouTube under the YouTube channel Modern Explorer, and he is a guy that is coming across some phenomenal evidence, and it has a lot to do with the remains of deer that he's running into as he's out in the bush researching. And if you go to the Facebook page for this group right here, I just loaded all these photos in there for you people to see. And basically what you got is deer legs being snapped off and thrown up into trees. You have the deer legs where the bones are being snapped in half by hand, twisted and snapped, and then the bone marrow being sucked out. And the thing is that there is absolutely zero teeth marks on these bones. And I don't know, you cannot, a normal man cannot snap a deer leg like that. Okay, I mean, these bones are like this big around, and when you see the pictures, you'll be blown away. But the thing that he found that really blew my mind was a whole entire deer pelt that was removed from this animal from the rear end up, like you would do if you were skinning a rabbit. Some big giant thing with hands and insane amounts of power took this animal and ripped its entire pelt off in one piece, slipped the pelt over the head of the animal, and then discarded it in the bushes. He came across the pelt. It was all rung up like it was rung up like a towel. He found it. He went and put it in the creek, which was close to there, under a couple rocks for a couple days. He came back to the site, and then he flattened it out on a big giant log, and he found out that the pelt is entirely in one piece. There's not a single hole in it, no teeth marks, no blood. And the most unique part is that the whole entire neck is in one piece as the pelt was being ripped over the head of the animal. And if you go onto your Facebook page, you'll see all of that. Because I just posted it on there. And the other one was a leg of a deer where the hoof is twisted off the bone, and you can see the tendons are twirled like rope. I mean, there's like 6 or 7 twists in this. So very obvious that something with hands and a tremendous amount of power is trashing these deer carcasses up in this area. And it's on YouTube. The channel is called Modern Explorer, and the actual episode is called In Search of the Nah, N-A-H. Check that out if you want to see some ridiculous. This is a whole different type of evidence. Normally you see stick structures, glyphs, footprints, all these different things. But now we're starting to get into the source, confirming that the source of food is deer, and that they're marking trails with them. They're marking trails with the remains of these deers, which is crazy. But when you see that pelt evidence, that is very, very substantial to see that a deer was skinned by hand, like a man would a rabbit pelt coming off a rabbit. What do you think about that?
Well, Cliff, excuse me. I'm a former taxidermist myself, and I have skinned thousands of deers in my career. I run a full-time studio for 11 years, and I've done it off and on for over probably close to 30 years. And I can tell you now that it's a hard feat to skin a deer, completely skin one, and not end up with a hole in it.
Exactly.
By using a knife. So this blows me away, man. It really does.
It's on your page. I just popped it in there. I've been working with this guy. I've been working with this guy for about 3 weeks. He's low key. He doesn't want his private life getting involved. So he released these photographs to me today in an email, and he says, "Do not use my name, but just forward people to my YouTube channel." Because he's got a wife, he's got a little family, so he doesn't want it interfering with his personal life, as far as hitting him up on his Facebook or anything like that. And I'd like to leave his name anonymous. You'll discover it when you go watch his videos and all that on YouTube. But he's also got tremendous evidence on the whole understanding of the tree snaps, and so his story is super unique. He got completely obsessed with Sasquatch. He ended up going out to this one site and spending the night in his Jeep every other night for a whole entire month at this location. And then, lo and behold, these creatures started coming down closer and closer to this campground where he was parking, and they started pelting his Jeep with pebbles at night. And so he goes out the next morning, finds a big giant area of bushes within range where these pebbles were. He starts seeing all the tree snaps right on the other side of that bush. He starts following the tree snaps, and the unique discovery that he's got going on is that the tree is snapped in the direction of their route. And so he sees the tree snap, he follows it. The tree is snapped like that. He follows it in this direction along the trail. He finds another snap 20 yards up the trail, pointing in the direction. He keeps following it, and he keeps following these actual snaps as they take him through their route. And then along this route of following the tree snaps, he starts coming across all this deer evidence. There's another photograph I left on your site of a deer pelt that is just thrown way up on a tree, kind of as a marker. And I think that, you see X's on trails, which I think are more like, domain markers. Do not come in here. This is our area type of thing. But I really think that the tree snaps are directional markers for them communicating to each other. This is where we go through here, kind of thing. So the fascinating stuff, man. I really want you guys to check out what's on your page right now. because I've been following pretty heavy, and this whole breakthrough right now with what's going on with the deer, the link to the deer remains, and the stuff that this guy has discovered as far as tree snaps. I think your people in this group are going to really, really enjoy some of this information.
Cliff, I would really love to talk with the guy that you're referring to. If you would, after our broadcast or sometime tomorrow, whenever, would you please send him our email address and just ask him if he would be interested in sharing some of his findings with us?
I'll pass it along to him. The one thing I don't want to do is speak for the man or put him in a position that he's uncomfortable with. So he knows when he gave me this information today. His exact words were, I trust you with this. Put it out there wherever you want to, but do not use my name, and refer everybody to my YouTube channel, because that's the way I want to go about this. He has a professional career. He's got, his reputation, and just like I do, that you get into this business and you're going to be a target for a lot of ridicule and different types of judgments that are going to be made on you, and I don't want to step into his life and cause him any grief, because he's been really good to me to entrust me with this information. But yes, I will pass along this Facebook page and connection to him. It'll be completely up to him to take it from there. I just really, really urge everybody to go to his YouTube channel, Modern Explorer, and check out what he's got, because I've always known that there's a lot to the tree structures. There's a lot to the tree snaps. And I've always believed that you cannot get that big and that strong, without having, some meat in your diet. I think that they're omnivorous. I think that they feed on everything and anything they can. But I mean, you hear all the stories about them dragging off farm animals, dragging off dogs, and they follow they follow the migrations of the animals. And some of these things are big enough to just take down a moose. I mean, some of these animals are upwards of 10, even 12 feet. So, I know they're the boss of the woods, and they can basically take down anything they want.
Right, completely. These things are, and people need to realize. I've had a lot of people approach me about this, and especially the women. And they try to portray these things as being, gentle teddy bears. Well, and people have had encounters with them where they have had mundane encounters with them where nothing really happened other than just them just showing themselves or whatever. But then they have had people that's had rock.
Horrendous encounter. Absolutely. Ape Canyon. There's been so many people that have been harassed, that have been run out of the forest. They've had their houses. There's been people have their windows broken out. There's people been attacked in cabins. I mean, just like anything, there's good ones and there's bad ones and there's medium ones, whatever. I think that, for example, if some hunter or some man has killed one of its relatives or shot one of its family members, it's going to be pissed, and it's going to, every time it sees a human, or especially somebody with a gun or anybody in that area where that incident happened, there's going to be retaliation. But then again, you can't ignore all the stories of the gifting. There's a story that I just came up upon about a guy that was fishing the Rogue River, and he was fishing for salmon, and he caught a couple really big salmon, and he was fishing. He got that weird feeling that he was being watched. He looked over his shoulder, and 30 yards up above him, behind him on the bank, is standing this freaking 9-foot giant Sasquatch, just looking at him, not doing anything, not saying anything, just watching him. He said that he had the fear of God put to him. He took one of his salmon, he laid it down on a piece of newspaper, and he grabbed his gear and backed off down the beach, 25 yards, and he said he got down on his knees, okay, and kept his head down. And he said the creature walked down to the beach, picked up the salmon, smelled it, let out a grunt, and then walked up the bank and left. And he said he packed up his shit and got right out of there. And he said he took him 2 weeks to get his act together after that. He said 2 weeks later, he went back to the spot. Now, this is where a lot of people are going to get, swallow their tongues and start laughing. But this is what his story is. 2 weeks later, he went back to the site, and right at the site where he had this situation with the gifting of the salmon, on this stump, there'd been a small stump placed there. And on top of the stump was berries and nuts that were just freshly set out for him. And it freaked him out. I mean, number one, how, people talk about these animals having all types of abilities. I'm kind of falling into that train of thought now that I've been doing all this research. And ever since I started researching, I'm thinking this animal has to have some kind of an edge. I mean, how could it possibly stay as elusive as it has? And it has this ability to pop in and pop out. Sometimes you'll see situations where it only leaves one print. It's like it pops out of a dimension, leaves a print, pops back in. Some people say that it can come and go wherever it wants. That may explain how one got down in San Diego. I mean, there is not enough forest down here to substantiate this thing, But when something the size of a hand, 2 or 3 times the size of a person, starts moving across our tent, what else could it be? But I just really feel that the world of Sasquatch is massive. We have no idea the extent of what it all entails. I firmly believe they have some abilities that are above our understanding, because they can do so many things. And I do believe that there's good ones, there's nasty ones. But the one thing I want to say is that don't go out in the forest by yourself. I would recommend that everybody be armed up when they go out. And if you get in contact with one, do not make eye contact with it. Don't provoke it. Just start immediately backing down and don't draw on it. I mean, because if this thing gets a hold of you, it's going to snap you like a twig. Okay, it's going to run right through you like a bull. So, don't underestimate it. Don't mess with it. Respect it. And if it is what I think it is, I think it's an ancient human. I think it's an ancient hominid that has been down here long before us. It's going to be here long after we go, or we do whatever we're doing down here. And like the Native Americans say, it is the boss of the forest, man. Don't underestimate it. Just respect it. And that's about all I can say. I mean, enjoy it. And I just want to give everybody that actually goes out and researches and puts their boots on the ground, I just want to give them so much respect. Anybody that's out in the forest at night, my goodness, man, you guys got a lot of courage, men and women who do that. So. And then once again, thank you for this group, man. It's been nice to get this off our chest. We're not going to be talking about it ever again. We're just going to let it go. But it is therapeutic to finally get it off our chest.
Well, Cliff, before we go, I've got a couple of questions. One for Patricia. Patricia, could you tell our viewers, please, the encounter that you had? And I know this is hard for you, but could you describe how big the hand actually was that you had the encounter with?
Well, I know the fingers itself went from one end of my head to the other. I can guesstimate that it's going to be between 13 and 14. Because I know for a fact, because I'm into the Guinness Book of World Records, that the tallest man had a hand size 12.75 inches, and that's from the wrist to the middle finger. The hand that I saw was from palm to middle finger. I'm going to guesstimate between 13 and 14. And it was just really thick.
Yeah, that was a big hand.
Yeah.
Cliff, a few more thoughts, bud. What would you tell people that actually encounter this thing in their campsites, comes out? I know as a researcher, I have found and I have learned that these things are very curious. You know, the way I look at it, once we go out into the woods, you know, we're in their home. You know, we are the invading party. And I have found that these animals are very curious myself, and that they're going to come and check you out. So, I mean, what kind of advice would you give our viewers as far as the actual encounter with these things?
Like I mentioned earlier, man, don't travel alone. And I would recommend be armed up so that you have it, you know, because if you encounter one that's in a rage, you know, you got to be able to defend yourself, because without a weapon, you are going to get snapped like a twig. Like when you go to your Facebook page and you see what I posted of these deer legs, well, that's going to be your leg. So, you know, don't provoke these animals. Respect them for what they are. Treat them with respect, and you're going to be treated with respect. If they're throwing rocks at you and they want you out of there, get out. Do what they want. If they want to, you know, sit outside your campsite and speak and talk, do that samurai chatter and all the different things that they do, record it. Turn on your phone. If they're going to entertain you, go with it. You know, I mean, take what they're going to give you, but don't push it. If they're don't run up to them. Don't chase them down. They may have a young one near. You know, and that's and the you know the other thing, they rarely ever travel alone. They always have sentries. So you're going to see one. The bold one is going to be the one that's usually it's an adolescent that's trying to prove himself, make a point. You know, but I guarantee you, Mama and Papa or the clan are around, because they're always connected with each other. There's a story of a hunter that was in his deer stand, and a doe came running out of the woods and laid down right at his deer stand, soaking wet like something was running it. And then all of a sudden, this huge freaking beast came running through the thicket after it, came face to face with the hunter. They went eye to eye for about a minute. This thing was laying down some serious, vicious looks at this hunter. And then all of a sudden, it let out this horrendous roar that the hunter said was a combination of an elephant and a lion roaring at the same time. It had that high pitch of the elephant, but it had that pound your chest type of vibration of a lion. And then it let out a whistle. And then from its flank came in a really, really loud whistle. Okay, while it's looking at this guy eye to eye, it turns toward the whistle and whistles back in the same exact way. Then the hunter hears another big, giant, massive thing tramping through the bushes, heading his way. At that point, he comes down out of his deer stand, runs for his life, brandishes his weapon at it, makes it back to his truck. But like I'm saying, just respect them for what they are. Treat them with respect. Don't go out, you know. Number one, don't go into the forest alone. This is not a money-making venture. This is not something that people should be trying to do. Just go out there, and if you find a place where you can see their structures, find some footprints, things like that, just be proud and privileged that you were able to be just a little dinky part of what they're all about. But from what I hear, you don't want to come face to face with one. You don't want to be, mano a mano with the big man of the forest, because it traumatizes you. It scars you. It's gonna, I've talked to hunters and woodsmen that have been out in the woods all their lives, fearless, been up cougar, bear, everything, moose in their face, all of that. And once they came to face with one of these, boom, they're done. They don't want to go out in the bush for a long, long time, because this is a whole different thing. I mean, when you see something that is 10 foot tall and 1,500 pounds tower over you, it's going to change your life, man. This is what I've learned. I don't want to come in contact with one. That's for sure.
For me personally, I don't think anybody should point a gun at it. I mean, if you want to have a weapon on you for your protection, that's fine. Don't point a gun at it. If you see it eye to eye, I mean, it's human.
It is. So, it's an ancient human.
So why not say hello? Why not just respect it? Tell them, you're sorry that you're in this area. You're just enjoying wherever you are. You mean no harm. If you tell them that there's no harm coming to them, I believe there's no harm coming to you. But if you're going to point a gun at them, they're going to feel that it's that you're disrespecting them, or that you want to harm them or injure them. So yeah, they're going to attack.
Possible. I also feel that they can detect trail cams. They can tell if you're trying to film them. And I mean, they're standing right there. I cannot tell you how many times, how much information, footage, all the different evidence I've seen where people are walking through the forest and the big man is standing 20 feet away from you. They are so stealthy that, man, you never know. I mean, if they wanted you, they would take you. So I personally believe that, the bulk of them are very, very leery of man. They don't want any part of us. They don't like it when they get spotted. You can tell by most of the videos that you see, the first thing they do is hightail it out of there. They don't want to be seen. They want to be left alone. And unfortunately, all we're doing is getting closer and closer to them. And now it's such a red hot topic. Everybody wants to go out and find them, make a bunch of noise. I think that the howling and the tree knocks and all the things that people do is the worst thing they can do. I mean, the first thing that Sasquatch is going to do is go, look at this poser trying to imitate us, and they're going to leave. So, I mean, if you want to come in contact with something, don't go out there and make a bunch of noise, because I believe me, if they're there, they already know you're there. They're already watching you. They could be watching you. You could have been under their eyes dozens and dozens of times already, and you never knew it, because most of the time when they're there, you never even knew it. They just came and went. You walked right past them. So give them some respect, and they'll give you respect. That's what I feel.
All right, guys, we're coming up on the hour here. I got a couple more questions for you, if you don't care, before I let you go. And again, I'd like to reiterate that we've loved having you on our show tonight. And anytime, Cliff, that you want to share any more information with our viewers, all you have to do is contact us, and we'd be glad to have you back on the show. I've got one other thing here. Mind speak. How do you feel on the subject of mind speak with these animals?
I'm very open-minded. One thing you got to do when you're trying to be a researcher is you got to be open-minded. You got to keep your mind wide open. Do not think that you have the answers. Just because something stretches what you think is possible, don't close your mind on it. This thing is more advanced than we are in so many ways. I mean, it does things that we can't do. And Les Stroud, he ran into MindSpeak. If you look up Les Stroud MindSpeak on YouTube, he'll tell you about when he encountered it. Okay, But the thing is that that night you had the feeling. Okay, so a lot of people, when they run into these things, they get a feeling of dread. Okay, there's a sheriff up in Washington that had a bit of road that had 9 or 10 sightings on it where they were crossing the road. He put up 8 or 9 trail cams in that area for 3 or 4 years. He didn't find squat. Okay, one day he was going out to check his trail cams and he got this insane feeling of dread when he was getting out of the truck, like I really feel I shouldn't be here. The whole time that he was going to his trail cams, this thing was hitting him with something, infrasound or mind speak or whatever it was, but it traumatized the hell out of this guy. This guy's a sheriff. He's armed up all the time. He's been in the woods his whole life. He's Native American as well, and the thing is that he encountered it. It was telling him, get out of my forest, get out of here, go away, stop doing that, stop trying to catch me. So I believe that they can do all kinds of things. You hear people say that they jump in and out of portals, in and out of dimensions. There's lots of Facebook groups where they talk about telepathy.
Yeah, telepathic.
The telepathic side of them. There's been people that have had Sasquatch speak to them in their dreams. And these people are going at great risk to come out and say stuff like that because there's a lot of people that are going to trash these folks after they say something like that. But they have nothing to gain and everything to lose by saying that. So I can't prove anything like that. I haven't had anything like that happen to me. But look, when 100 people start saying something, what are the chances that every single one of these 100 people are lying? Okay. For example, if you have 10,000 Bigfoot sightings, and some of these people are cops, and some of these people are, highly respected members of the community that have reputations and careers that can be damaged by coming out with this. Can every single one of these folks be lying? Can every single footprint be faked? Can the Patterson-Gimlin film be faked? I mean, it comes down to this. Either the whole entire genre of every single piece of evidence that has ever been brought forward is all fake, or we got a really large hominid living in North America, coming and going wherever it wants, coming in places that it should not be.
Yeah.
Southern California, right next to a desert.
Well, I mean, they can go anywhere. On the telepathy, or even the psychic abilities, there are psychics out there and empaths out there that have talked to these guys. Some of them even say that they're guardians. And I know people listening are going, come on, they're all on crack, or they've been drinking, or, the psychics aren't real. But psychics are real. There are mediums out there that can talk to anything and everything because they're open. When we're born, our sixth sense is open. That's why children can see things that adults can't see. When we become adults, everything closes off. It's up to us to reopen that sixth sense and feel something. Something told me to look. It was in my head. It was a voice, and it said, look. In order for me to see that hand, I would have never, I was underneath the covers scared to death. I was ready to go to sleep, but something told me to look.
Maybe mind speak. There's a guy out there, Mike Patterson. His last name is with one T, Paterson, in Ontario, Canada. If you want to go down the mind speak route, check out what he's working with a particular Sasquatch called Nefertia up in the woods up there. He's had a relationship with this particular single animal for over 5 years. There's a lot of gifting that's going on back and forth, and this thing comes and talks to them. I don't want to give the whole story away on Mike, but look up Mike Patterson with 1 T in Ontario, Canada, and what's going on with that situation will blow your mind, because you'll actually hear a Sasquatch talk. You'll actually hear a Sasquatch say words, English words, call out his name. And this particular Sasquatch keeps leaving marbles as gifts. Where the marbles come from, nobody knows. But he's got a bag of over 30 marbles now that keep freaking showing up on this guy's porch. And now he's got a recording of this animal actually saying the word marble amongst all the other.
And saying his name, Mike.
Yeah, it says his name.
And you can, when you hear it, you can tell that is no human saying it.
Oh, it's way beyond the range.
Yeah.
When you hear this, when you hear these vocalizations, it goes into a range that is so far beyond what a human can do as far as the highs and the lows of it, but also the ferocious power, that the decibels that this thing comes at him with. So check out Mike Patterson as far as what he's doing. Check out my boy in Colorado Springs, Modern Explorer. There's another guy in British Columbia called Brian Bland, B-L-A-N-D, that's got, if you want to see structures, check out Brian Bland in British Columbia. Mind-blowing structures. You want to see some structures in Albuquerque, New Mexico, Glenn Parkinson, Parkison, not Parkinson, but Parkinson. Phenomenal structures that are so close to a road it would blow your mind. So they're everywhere.
Guys, I'd like to really thank you again for your time tonight. It's been an awesome show. You're a very knowledgeable man when it comes to this. You and Patricia both, you've really done your homework. And that's what we're all out there for, is to actually educate the people. And I've said this from day one. I iterated to my partner that education, that is the key factor to bringing about the existence of this hominoid to not only the American people, but the people of the world, to actually prove that this thing exists. Again, I thank you so much. Both of you are very welcome to come back to our show anytime that you have any evidence that you want to put forward. Again, thank you and good night.
Thank you.
It's been a privilege and an honor. Appreciate you very much. Take care.